Leon spinning the third. Hey, buddy, welcome to ATV Talk. And we're going to talk about round seven, Budds Creek. And we're going to
Budds
find out all the
Creek.
good Budds Creek, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to find out all the dirt that got flown around in a couple of the classes. And,
hmm
and
hmm
hopefully there's some stuff that we didn't get to read about online that you and I could talk about.
Let's hope, anyways.
Right on, right on. Tell me a little bit about, JJ has got injured. He's out for the rest of the year, or
Mhm.
is he coming back soon? Do we know?
The plan was that he was only going to miss Budds Creek, and basically he just had a little. It wasn't even an accident, so I don't want to say it a freak accident, but just one of those things that maybe it's just a side effect of being really, really tall. He was practicing at home the Friday before Budds Creek, the week before we had Budds Creek, and he tweaked his back and was, kind of fine the next day. And then the morning after, he was actually in church and couldn't really move, couldn't stand up, couldn't get comfortable. Went in and they found out that he pulled some muscles and pinched some nerves that actually were really close to his spine. And so, I mean, just like I said, I don't know if it's just one of those things of him being too tall, but I definitely don't think it has anything to do with his accident from Iron Man because I know he'd been riding since then quite a bit. And so
How's
just
the
one
knee?
of those things. What's that?
How's the knee?
He said his knee's fine. He hasn't said anything about his knee in a while. And, like I haven't seen the knee slow him down or anything like that. Iron Man even he seemed to be pretty good about the knee. It just rung his bell.
Okay. You know,
Yeah.
hey, it's a rookie season. It's a learning curve. These kind
hmm
of things happen.
Yeah.
We always start these shows off in many different ways. Uh, but we talk a lot about entries and crowd size. What
hmm
did you see there? And are we seeing a drop off in attendance or an increase?
It doesn't seem to be picking up at all. Especially when you look at the numbers, like Budds Creek, for example, it was really only like 11 riders down from 2024, but it was down a little bit. And I don't believe this happened last year, but one thing that was kind of weird about Budds Creek is it was a District 6, D6 district race as well. So that brought, I know there's a lot of riders that came from PA that usually wouldn't race a national. I also met a lot of riders that actually run I don't want to mess this up, the NE Quad Cross Series, I believe is the name of it. The New
Okay.
England Cross, or yeah, New England Quad Cross Series. And so, I mean, there's a lot of new faces, and we were still down 11 riders.
Wow.
So,
In total.
in total, yes, yes. And the
Okay, that
total
could be
entries of every
that could
class.
be injury, sickness.
Right, right. That could also play a part in it. And it could just be that there are some riders that aren't racing anymore or aren't coming to the nationals anyways. So, but I
Exactly.
mean, when you look at, say, the pro class in general, there isn't anybody new, but we also have three riders that were out at Budds Creek anyways due to either injuries or a sickness that now turned into new fatherhood.
Okay. A
Yeah.
sickness that turned into new fatherhood.
First being out due to sickness right away, but like Cody Ford, he's health, he's not ill anymore, but he
Now,
also just had a baby a couple rounds, actually it was during Ironman, I believe, the Sunday of Ironman, so Mother's Day. Cody Ford and his wife welcomed their baby, and also the fact that he was down for a couple months due to an illness. He wasn't training or anything like that, so he decided that, and we'll see if we see him at all this year, but he hasn't come back yet just because he's not in shape, especially to run the pro class.
all right. What about Brandon Hogue? So all the report I got is
Uh-huh.
that he had a heat issue, and they said
Yep.
it wasn't the machine.
It
It
was
was
not the machine.
it was
So
him.
Brandon Hogue, I don't I haven't had a moment to really speak to him yet to really see what he says went on. Obviously, he knows a lot about the human body.
Mhm.
Um, One thing that I'm wondering, because yeah, he did have an health issue on the track, and from what I was told, he said that going up the face of Big Gulp, which is the biggest triple on that track, that only a couple of quads are even hitting, to be honest with you. Um, he said it felt like he felt something in his chest, and he believes it was like his heart skipping a beat. And then he lost his vision, went black going up the face of a triple. So immediately he just pulled off the track, went back to the rig, and he wasn't doing too well at all. He got into an ice bath, and his body immediately turned lobster red, and he
So
was
they took him to
ghost
the
white
hospital,
before that.
and they took him to the hospital.
He did not go to the hospital.
Really?
Yep. He just was mending at the track. Obviously, like I said, he knows a lot about the body. He is really good with knowing how to take care of stuff. So yeah, he took an ice bath, and then he just kind of relaxed and tried to take care of himself. And I believe he is doing better now, but like I said, I haven't actually had a chance to speak to him yet.
Do you was it overly hot?
It was quite warm. Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing with Hogue too that I don't want to speculate here, but it made me wonder the fact that there was something that went down at sunset where Brandon Hogue left the team. I don't want to say he lost his ride. There are some things that happened. Brandon ended up stepping away from his Westland ride that he had. And when I spoke to him before Budds Creek, he was done racing for the year. He was, and I know I interviewed him before Budds Creek as well, and he said, due to financial reasons, he wasn't going to race. And it was Thursday before Budds Creek that he was finally convinced to race. He showed up to the track. He did not have gear. They next dayed him gear. Ian from SSI next dayed him some numbers and the AMA patch to put on his jersey. So it makes me wonder as well, he rode off riding for the rest of the season. I'm sure he may not have been training and eating like he usually does. And if you're doing that for a few weeks between Sunset and Budds Creek, if you're doing that, your body may have almost went into shock when all of a sudden you're doing the physical abuse that you're usually doing with all that training and nutrition that you stick to.
I can't wait to talk to him. He did
Right.
not respond back
Mm-hmm.
to my media request or my text messages. Basically
Yeah.
was, hey, if you got something to say, let me know.
Right.
I just asked him if he was okay, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a reaction. So Brandon, if you watch this, reach out, just, let us know that you're okay. We don't
Yeah.
have to do an interview. We don't have to do anything. Just want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah. And I know
Um,
I did reach out to him at last week, and same thing. I did not get a response. So he might just be keeping quiet about it, whether it's due to he may not know. It may be worse than what a lot of people think. I don't know. It's hard to say.
right. Well, we'll see Friday. If there's a race this weekend, right? 4th of July
Yep.
weekend.
Yep. This weekend we are racing in West Virginia.
Okay, another hot race.
Yeah. Yep. It is. I mean, obviously I'm in Ohio, but like say the weather here was real similar to how it was at Budds Creek last week, and it was just as hot here as it was there. The temperatures are cooler, a little bit cooler here in Ohio than it was last week even. So hopefully it's not as bad as it was at Budds Creek.
But a few weeks before that, it was raining.
I mean, yeah, we pretty much have had rain for a couple weeks straight.
Well, let's
Hit a
talk
rain
about
the
pro
other day.
sport, bud. Let's get into pro sport.
Yeah.
Um, we have some normal names at the top of the list and the top four riders that we talk about all the time. But
Hmm.
down farther, we have some new guys. Well, not new guys. Juan is a guy that's been in the class. There were
Yep.
19 entries, just saying that's up
Hmm.
from last
Hmm.
race. Um, but there are some different names, Juan being and, pulling that fifth overall.
Yep.
Justin McDaniel, I don't remember talking about him.
Justice McDaniel is, I believe he was, I don't think he's very old. Um, he's been around for a while. Well, it looks like he has been riding Pro Sport and 450A all year. But I mean, you think looking at like say Sunset, he was in 11th place. Ironman, he was 14th. He did get a 10th place at Lake Sugar Tree, but he's somebody that's usually not inside the top 10.
Well, he pulled it off. Juan has missed a
Hmm.
couple rounds, hasn't he?
That's a good question. Looking here, he did not race Sunset. Otherwise, yeah, he did Budds Creek, he did Ironman, Lake Sugar Tree, and Etchicani.
Okay, well, we missed his name,
Yeah. Well,
farther
let's see.
down in the
Etchicani
order.
seventh, Lake Sugar Tree ninth, Ironman fifth, and now fourth. So it seems like
Yeah,
he's finally getting comfortable and getting back up to where,
he's fifth.
because a couple years ago he was somebody that was usually up in that top five.
Well, you taught your top four guys.
Hmm.
Normally, Damien is at the top of the list, not fourth.
Right. Right.
Okay, so it must have been a hard fought battle between those guys because he ended up with a second and a fourth, um, excuse me, fourth and a third.
Fourth and a third. And I mean, that's also strange because of how his performance was on Sunday, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Right. Well, and Caden Deal, he's always somewhere in that mix of the top three. And
Hmm.
Noah Arnal, he's still young, but
Hmm.
he's proving his way to the top of
Oh,
that
yeah.
stack.
Noah's definitely progressed this year quite a bit.
Hasn't he grown quite a bit too?
No, not really. He's still a short little shit.
I'll make sure he'll watch this. So he's going to reach out to you about that.
I I'll
Uh,
I talk to him all the time. He'll be fine.
Cody is the one that is really the jaw
Hmm.
dropper because he's
Yep.
a TT specialist and he's coming out here
Yeah.
showing these motocross guys how to ride.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I believe Cody did really well at Budds Creek last year too. Yeah. Well,
And
I should
dude, he's kind of done pretty well every day,
he got a second, and last year Budds Creek, he got second and then 19th. So I think he crashed though in the second Pro Sport Moto last year.
You know, we talk about these two guys every so often, Gage Beebe and Heath Hanna.
Mm-hmm.
Gage, a seventh and a 13th. Don't know what happened
Mm-hmm.
to him. It
Mm-hmm.
seems to where if he could put it together, same with
Right.
Heath, they would move themselves farther up the order.
Yeah.
Maybe even give themselves a shot to run in the top five. But it just seems like no matter what they do, something happens in one of the motos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're both veterans.
Right. I think it's just one of those things that I mean, Gage, I don't know any time that I've seen Gage break during a moto. His is just, I mean, I'm not even gonna hold back here. Gage is it's all mental.
But
He's
he's
one
a
of those riders that on a practice day is super fast, and then we get on the gate and he will. He's a wild card. You don't know what you're gonna get.
Well, he loves the sport.
And
He built some pretty cool bikes.
yeah, he does. He does. And Heath, it's one of those things where I don't know if it's financial part of it or what, but it seems like he always just has random bike issues. A lot of times it's either bike issues or he has some sort of get off or gets stuck in a pile up or something weird.
Yeah, from everything I see and every video I watch, he's a very talented rider, and he
Yeah, he
should be
is.
back.
100%.
And
Yeah.
he's a little larger than some of
Mhm.
them, which I'm a little larger than some of them. So I think that maybe, you know, Heath, get your together and get out there and
Yeah.
get up front because we believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, great competitive class, with 4 or 5 guys, 6 guys that can
Hmm.
win that race and at any given time.
Yeah.
So pro sport is keeping the challenge of competitiveness going. As
Hmm.
we switch gears here and get into, no pun intended about switching gears, but
Hmm.
as we get into the WMX, um,
Hmm.
Shelby, Olivia, in India, these three ladies are fighting very hard for that
Hmm.
number 4 spot, and
100%.
and it's a constant battle,
Yeah.
with between, one beats one moto, the other moto,
Right.
and they're fighting amongst themselves. So we have almost two different progressional battles going on.
Yeah.
Um, Tegan might be the rider that's floating in the middle that's broke away from the fourth place group,
Hmm.
hasn't quite caught the leading group yet,
Yeah.
but this young lady, if she sticks with it, could be someone we're talking about in the future,
Right.
trying to take that title away from Kinsey.
Yeah. It's
Um,
possible. And I know with Tegan too, she's somebody that, because I've had conversations with the top three women quite a bit, and I've had conversations with the entire WMX class as a whole. And there's a couple of these WMX riders that kind of wish they were running longer motos like they should be as a professional women's class.
I agree. I think that,
Mhm.
sorry, ladies, you're really not going to like this, but I think they should be under the pro banner. They should
I
be
think
running
they should be under
Yamahas.
production class too.
Yeah, they should be running Yamahas under
Mhm.
production deals. And I'm sorry, that's just the way I believe.
Mhm.
Yes,
And
it
it's
might
funny
eliminate.
that that three-time champion is somebody that wouldn't be mad if there was a production rule.
No, I don't think she would
So
be. It might
she
hurt
told me she
Emma.
wouldn't be because she's ridden Yamahas and she feels good on them.
And I think every one of these gals would.
Hmm.
I know that financially it might hurt a couple of them at first.
Right. Well,
But in the race,
financially, I mean, that'd be the issue under the Osborne tent would be the financial part of it.
right. But they would have help.
I would assume so.
And I think Emma Wray, has made a name for herself already and would have help as well, switching to a
If she wanted to come
if
back, yeah.
if you want. You know what? We'll find out because guess
Hmm.
what? She's going to be on my show very shortly, and we're
Perfect.
going to get her on and
Perfect.
talk to her about it. Um,
Perfect.
yeah, it took some. I guess her and I have been crossing wires, but she's going to come on there right now. You know more about how the points breakdown is and the
Hmm.
throwout situation. They're in a tight toss up of who's going to be what, where, and when.
They
Um,
are right now in the points, and it is because basically when you're looking at if you do a throw, put the throw out in there as of right now, Kinsey would take over the points lead
okay,
because, well, actually, no, it would be, I take that back. It would honestly be tied at this moment
and that would it
because
would be Emma's
Kinsey,
deal. It would be
what's
Emma's
that?
because she got the first overall.
Yeah, it would be. But yeah, because you've got Emma would throw out a second and Kinsey would throw out a 10th. So they would both have first. Oh nope, I take that back. No, it would not be tied. Kinsey would take it over because Kinsey would throw out a 10th, like I said. Emma would throw out one of her seconds, which would leave Emma with two firsts and 2 seconds, and it would leave Kinsey with three firsts and 1 second.
Okay. Well,
So
the battle royale is
it
going to
is tight.
continue. Um, Tegan has moved herself, I believe, into third in points.
Yes, yes.
And this young lady comes from New Mexico, races in Texas. She races cross country and motocross
Hmm.
in a form that isn't even close to the nationals, and she's this
Hmm.
fast.
Yeah, yeah. And she's very young and is doing this
Hmm.
well.
16. She's a
Yeah.
hunter. She's motivated, outdoorsman or outdoors person, lady, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I think that look out. She gets the right she gets the right deal behind her. She could stay
Hmm.
for 2 or 3 years, and I think
Yeah.
that she could become a champion.
Yeah. Well, and then when we're talking about that too, I mean, Shelby is somebody that it sounds like she really needs to work on her starts this year. Because if she could figure out her starts and isn't battling through the pack so much, she could be closer to that third place battle.
That would,
Because
yeah.
the other thing with it too is when you're looking at the WMX class, a lot of these women, you know, Kinsey and Emma jump a lot of stuff. But for the most part, a lot of these women, when they talk about what they need to work on a race weekend, it's they don't jump very, a lot of them don't jump some of the jumps. I know Shelby jumps. So I mean, if it's her starts were better, she would be further up there because she is hitting the jumps on the track.
It's kind of funny. You watched the first round, and Shelby came out in the top two.
Mm-hmm.
She might even got one of the hole shots.
It's possible. I'm not sure if she got the whole shots or not.
She was right there,
Yeah.
because I keep replaying that in my head, and I believe she was in the top.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I want to see what's going to happen next year with that class. I hope Emma comes back. We're going to lose Olivia. She's going to be forwarding her career.
Mm-hmm.
There's a possibility that we could lose Taygun next year as well because she wants to further her career,
Mm-hmm.
even though she's only 16. So there's
Yeah.
some things that are going to go on in that class. We need to get these young ladies, more of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as we transition here into the pro-am deal,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yes, I really think that we need to talk about this, but let's talk about something that's even worse, and that I think is a bigger problem. There's only a
Mm-hmm.
there's only 9 riders on that line. There were
Mm-hmm.
10 supposed to be. I don't know what happened to Cody, but he didn't start,
Yeah.
after
And
winning
that could have been
Saturday.
the Heat putting a pounding on him too, that he just woke up Sunday and had nothing left in the tank. It's hard to say, but yeah, that especially when we look at where Pro-Am is, the numbers in Pro-Am have been in the last few years, and all of a sudden we're 10 riders that sign up.
Yeah, and yeah, it used to be a full gate.
Yeah, it used to be over 20 riders. We were
Right.
actually qualifying and doing LCQs.
So, I mean, I don't know what they need to do in the promotion
Hmm.
or what's going on. They're all Yamahas. Do you think that this year the production rule could have hurt them? Because it
It
started
may
this
have
year.
a little bit, even it's hard to say though, because they've known about this for 2 years.
Yeah, but there's some guys that just financially were not ready to go out and buy a Yamaha. Do you think that they're there now, that next year that's going to bring some of these guys back?
Hopefully, hopefully. And I think that's a big thing too. And I've had this conversation with other people. You don't have to run a Yamaha in the at the Nationals. I think you could still run a Honda.
I think so
It's
too.
just there's the parts out there available for them. There's all sorts of stuff. Tom Ebden is somebody that, he's running pro sport, but he's on a Honda and he actually went to production Hondas for the pro-am purpose. Now, I will tell you that in pro-am, unfortunately, Tom Ebden at Budds Creek ended up in the hospital. He's back in Canada now with a broken hip, 4 broken ribs, a broken hand, and a broken wrist.
Well, get better. Get
So
better.
there's an excuse to not run pro-am on Sunday, but he is somebody that was running pro-am on a production Honda.
Right.
And that's somebody that is a first year in the pro-am class. He's currently sitting 17th
Can't you run
overall.
can't you run a Suzuki?
You could run a Suzuki. You could run a KFX if you want. You could run a DS if you want. You could run a KTM if you want. You could run a Blaster if you want. I don't care. You run whatever you want. And yeah, an LTR, there are still parts out there for them.
Yeah.
It's just that everyone just Yamaha, yes, Yamaha is the only 450 that is made right now. That's the only one you could buy brand new off the showroom. But it seems like everybody's just a bunch of sheep. It's kind of society in general at this point.
Yeah.
You all just got to do what everyone else is doing. But you don't really need to do that. You can be your own individual. You can run a Honda, you could run a KFX, you could run an LTR. There's nobody putting a gun to your head and saying you have to sell everything you have and get a Yamaha.
Right. I mean, it's a great
There's
bike,
a
but yeah, I totally agree. You
Mhm.
could get creative, look at Smith in the pro class. He's got a bunch
Right.
of LTR
Marshall's
upgrade.
got a sweet machine.
Yes, he does. And he's got some bitchin' ideas to make them
Mhm.
reliable and work really well. Um, his tank mods,
I own an
every bike that I
LTR.
work
I'm
on,
getting one of Marshall's fuel tanks this weekend at Tomahawk.
dude, the bike that will come out in dirt wheels, got one of
Hmm.
his tanks on it. I'm building one for a customer, putting his
Hmm.
tank on it.
Yeah, it's
Also,
awesome. Put an
yes,
in-tank fuel pump in that thing. Simplify that fuel system. Boom.
yeah, it instant. Now you can take the tank on and off without any issues.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I mean, and it's crazy, and the pump's not failing. I mean, so there's so many
Bingo.
positive deals. I think that on Sunday, maybe there's a portion of your entries down because one rider stepped out and didn't finish, and you have another guy that was on the podium on Saturday that
Hmm.
is in sixth place, Cale
Right.
Deal.
Right.
Um, maybe the heat got to him. He's from
Yeah.
Florida, so the heat shouldn't have bothered him a bit.
Right. Right. And I mean, that's the big thing too. It's really hard to say because you've got Joey Norris that has won every moto so far in Pro-Am and went 2-2 for second overall. Damien Hubert went 1-1 for first overall. And
Maybe
I mean,
Damien was
that's
pissed. Maybe Damien was pissed.
maybe.
I mean, I'd love to get the guy on the show to find out.
I do know that Joey, he did have a little get off on the first moto and pro on Saturday. And that when he got back on the bike, he was not going very fast at all. But I mean, he got back in there and raced the second moto and didn't get last. So what's going on there?
He did have that shoulder injury last week too. Did he
Yeah, he
re-aggravate
did. He
it?
did.
Did he
But yeah, I mean,
re-aggravate?
he got behind. He was ahead of Hogue because Hogue didn't finish the moto. He was last place in that first moto, though. I mean, he was rolling the track in that first moto.
Well, we're going to get into that in a bit,
Right.
but Noah Arnell, jumped in there for
Going
third,
3-3 for third. Yeah.
you know,
And that's
and then
somebody that, because like I say, lives like an hour from me. He's riding multiple times every week. Like he trains probably about as much as a pro rider trains. He's putting in the work. And
yeah, he
he's
wants to
not
develop.
somebody that comes from a lot of money. They're an everyday working family. So for him to find the time to do everything and he goes to public school, everything else, like pretty impressive for him to be doing what he is.
Exactly. So, you got to hats off. Juan and Heath and Cade or Cale all
Mhm.
swapped positions to end up where
Hmm.
they are.
Right.
Obviously, Juan ended up in the fourth, and Heath in fifth, and Cale in the sixth. Uh,
Yeah.
Gage ran 7.7, so he
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
was in the same spot. But we got to figure out what's going on with Cody. Anybody that
Yeah.
knows, reach out and then let's find out. Is he okay? Was it just
Yeah.
heat?
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Let's hope that's all it was, anyways. Nothing else happened.
right. So, as we as we get to our premier class, our pro class, we already talked about Hogue. We already talked about Joey Norris, who
Hmm.
did a 14th and an 11th. Um, Taylor Marlin from New Jersey is a new
Tyler Marlin.
class. Tyler Marlin.
He joined the pro class back in Ironman.
Okay.
Hmm.
New to the class or just
New
didn't
to
feel
the class this year. Yeah, he was somebody that raced Pro Sport Pro Am for the last few years. Um, he was on a Baldwin TRX CRF hybrid that he got a lot of hole shots over the last few years in the Pro Am Pro Sport classes.
okay.
Hmm. But he made the switch to a Yamaha this year. Didn't quite have the bike ready at the beginning of the season, but he was planning on making the jump, and like I said, he just didn't have the stuff ready to go right away.
Okay.
So,
Cool. And then he's another developing rookie,
hmm.
which is great. Joey Norris. We talked about him. Um,
Yep.
Adam Ulrich and Decker seem to swap positions back there in 10th and
Hmm.
11th. Let's talk about Zach a little bit. Is he still having issues with his recovery? Is he 100%?
I don't think it's anything to do with I mean I haven't heard anything anyways about his finishes lately being involved with any of his previous injuries, or if it's just, that he's fading a bit. I don't know.
I'm betting it's mental
I'm guessing it's mental.
because the kid was so on fire, going
Hmm.
so fast before
Hmm.
that he's probably got some demons that he may not even know that he has that
Right.
in the back of his mind during the moto, it's coming in to haunt him.
Well, and
And
I don't want to be putting any ideas in his head if it's not the case already, but he's never gone this far into a pro season. I mean, even going back to where this started, he's never gone more than a couple rounds into a pro year.
so he's still kind of a rookie,
Kind of.
you know? Wow. I mean,
Hmm.
that's so there's development. So he's developing as a rider at the same time, and maybe
Hmm.
he's where he's supposed to be,
It could be. It definitely could be.
you know. The guy that's not supposed to be in ninth place is Jeffrey Rastrelli. I'm
Hmm.
assuming that he got off in that second moto.
He faded. He faded badly in that second moto for the 13th.
Really? So do
Hmm.
you think maybe the heat got him?
I'm kind of wondering if that's what happened. And I don't know if this is really out there much, but in that second moto, because of what happened to Hogue, I mean, you had after that first moto, you had Joel that was in bad shape. You had Chad that was in pretty bad shape. Obviously, we just talked about Hogue a little bit, and I know Tyler Marlin was struggling really bad after that first moto. So they took a vote at this before the second moto began, asking because the dirt bikes did this as well, and they voted to shorten the moto from an 18 plus 2 to a 15 plus 2. I do know that Jeffrey is one of those riders that voted not to shorten the moto. And then I saw him rolling around a little bit in that second moto. So
And he didn't think he
if
was as
the,
effective as he was.
that's what I'm wondering.
Okay.
Maybe he got tired and faded and, couldn't go as further. And I don't know.
Um, yeah, I didn't know that as many people will. I can't believe Joel was affected by it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, and the first moto was worse than the second moto.
What was the temperature?
According to what's that?
What was the temp?
I believe it was in the 90s, but it felt terrible. And especially in that first moto, there was no air movement either.
High humidity.
And you had humidity. The second moto, there was a little bit of air movement. And Joel and Bryce and Wesley all said in that second moto, it felt better than the first moto.
So, I don't want to skip ahead, but we're probably going to Mason, Nick, and Chad. seem to be swapping positions and
Hmm.
moving themselves around.
Hmm.
Mason got the better of it, which
Yeah.
Mason's gotten the better of it for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Nick and
And
Chad,
Mason, to touch base on Mason real quick, he was running third in that first moto for he was actually running second in the first moto for a while. Bryce ended up getting around him, and then obviously Wesley and Max did as well. I can also tell you that Mason blew a radiator in that first moto. He finished the race, obviously, but blew the radiator. Ended up having to do a radiator and engine swap in between the two. I only know this because I ended up helping with it. Um, but that's and Chad, he had two bad starts, both motos.
maybe the heat affected him in a different way.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, obviously he had to work his way up quite a bit, and then he and Max were battling for a little while, and then he ended up fading a little bit, and Max kept on carrying forward.
Wow. So the top
Mhm.
four guys finished in the spot that they started in, or
Exactly,
they
exactly.
finished in the first moto. That's
Hmm.
a great result for Max. Did you see Wesley's interview?
I interviewed Wesley as well.
Okay.
Very interesting.
So what's your take on what he said?
Well, I mean, Wesley is I really enjoy talking to Wesley because he is a person that will say whatever he is thinking. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously he he makes it known quite well in every interview that I do with him that he doesn't train like most riders. He's working construction. He's working out with a hammer in his hand.
Yep.
And so and obviously he's proud of that. But yeah, I mean, he's beating riders that don't. And the other thing with that too, that I don't think many people, obviously everyone always talks about how Wesley's doing this. Like in the comments of my interview, they talk about how Wesley is such a, hard worker and stuff like that. Mason Jackson during the week is doing concrete.
Right.
That's another rider that physically works his ass off.
Max Lindquist is a plumber.
Right, right.
You know?
So yeah, I mean, yeah, Wesley does a lot and doesn't do much training. The other riders do find more time to train and work. But yeah, I mean, Wesley has a lot of raw talent and he's got the mouth to go with it.
Well, hey, he should because I think he's a fantastic rider, and if he was going to get a ride per se,
Hmm.
he's the guy. If I had the financial deal to go and have a team, that's the guy I'm picking.
Well, and that's the big thing too, is a lot of people will say, oh, he talks a lot of shit, whatever. Look on the dirt bike side. Love him or hate him, Hayden Deegan's annoying.
Hagen Deegan's a freaking
He's
disrespectful asshole that's super
right.
talented,
He's full of himself. He's just a little Brian is all it is. But he's a little dickhead.
but he's
Let's face it.
talented, and that's the only way he gets away with it because he
Hmm.
wins races. If he didn't win races,
Right.
nobody would tolerate him.
Right. And I think with that has made, if you've watched any of the stuff lately, you see there's a lot more respectable Jet Lawrence out there. And we just had this conversation in my household last week, and it makes you wonder, did Jet see Hayden and realize, oof, I don't want to be that guy? And now he's kind of become a better person. I mean, obviously there's
I
the
didn't.
video that went out there too that didn't do as bad as the poster thought it was going to, but
Um, I don't. I never saw any negative with Jet, but I
it
never.
just
I
it,
just
it
never seen it.
seemed
Doesn't mean it wasn't there.
yeah, well, it's just always like on Supercross, and I still find it annoying. It's like and they're doing with Hayden now, but they were doing it with Jet before. It doesn't matter where that person is on the track. They always have to like, you know, make sure they highlight that one person more than anyone else. And, now that Jet was out for a while and had to watch that stuff, makes me wonder like, oh, I don't want to be the guy that's getting all of the attention. Now he's pointing, taking cameras and that were zoned in on him and pushing them over to watch Eli Tomac with his kids.
Right.
He's becoming a better person about the sport as a whole instead of just the look at me kind of person.
Let's briefly have that conversation. Bryce Ford,
Yeah.
Joel Hetrick dominate. They run
Yeah.
two. Um, let's talk about the family side of it
Hmm.
because it's like Joel and Jeffrey and Chad are the parents.
Kind of. Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
the guys that have been around a long time. They all have kids,
Hmm.
um, and they're
They've
a
all
little
been
more
running this
grounded.
for a long time.
Yeah, they're a little more grounded.
Hmm.
Um, I think that makes their program a little better. Um,
Yeah.
if you look at Jeffrey's age and you look at uh, uh, Chad's age, we might be seeing a slow version of these guys finding their way to the end.
It's quite possible. And I mean, obviously there's rumors, but yeah, it is possible that we could be seeing a couple of these guys leaving in the foreseeable future. Jeffrey is I think I know Joel is 32. Jeffrey, I think, is like 33. I think he's like a year younger than me, and Chad's pushing 40.
Right. And Joel's age hasn't come up yet because Joel's aging slower.
Right. Joel is, well, look at Chad. Yeah, he's pushing 40 now. He was still getting championships when he was Joel's age.
Right. Well,
Honestly, that was in the prime of Chad's championship era.
Gary Denton retired when he was 38.
Right.
Doug Eichner retired when he was 49. Bo
Right.
Barron's 46 and leading the points and works.
Right.
Um, I
I
think I
mean,
think Eichner was in his championship phase in his 40s,
right.
in
I
his
mean, obviously
30s.
Marshall's not fighting for a championship, but Marshall Smith turns 50 this next month in July.
Right. It's modern day dietary deals have made it
Mhm.
better. Modern day uh, medical has made it better. I mean, there's
Right.
just so many things that have made. I think riding four strokes versus two strokes
Hmm.
are allowing the careers to last longer. The last
Hmm.
thing I wanted to touch on the motorcycle side was Eli Tomac was the bad guy before.
Hmm.
Okay, we go back to his early career. He was the a-hole. He's no
Yeah.
longer
Yeah.
the a-hole. He's the
Right.
freaking veteran that's
He's a veteran family man, and yeah,
respected. And you know what? I bet you Eli hasn't changed that much.
it's hard to say. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't
I
know
don't
him
know.
personally, but you
Yeah.
know, I mean, I was pissed at him when he switched to Honda. Now, dude, just ride. Just keep riding, Eli, because
Right.
I enjoy the fact that you're older,
Yeah.
you're a little more reserved, and you're strong and still capable of winning.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, you go into that and Joel Hetrick, he's been riding the pro class for 15 years.
Yep. Not everybody
And
realizes
you
that.
know, and that's one thing that he actually touched base on in the last interview I had with him after Budds Creek is, you see online how all these people are like, oh, if this class was all these people in this class are running 10 years ago, so they'd all be getting their asses kicked. Bring back all these guys. And Joel straight up said, people keep saying that, but I've been doing this for 15 years.
I was there. Yeah, I was
And
there.
I was in that everyone's talking about. And
And
I
he was
was
the
getting
front.
fifth, sixth, seventh place finishes.
Yeah, and he would occasionally get on the podium.
Right. He has found, he's done this for so long that he has found advantages, and we've talked about this before. He and Chad Wienen, there's been how many seasons where those two would go 1 and 2 and flip back and forth. And it
Right.
was basically, it came down to who got more firsts
Like 5 years in a row,
seconds.
isn't it?
Yeah, gotta be really close. Yeah. I
Right.
think it's something like that. And now, Chad is dropping down. Joel is walking away from everybody. Bryce is starting to figure things out and is up there. He's kind of separating himself from everyone else. Brandon Hogue, I'll be honest, let's just say it here. If he was on a good ride, he would be right there with Bryce.
So
Maybe
who's
ahead of
Team
Bryce.
USA?
It hasn't been picked yet, but I mean, if we're going straight off of points, it's going to be Joel, Bryce, Chad.
Would you take Chad?
When we're talking about the rest of the world, I would still take Chad. Chad knows what it takes to be, and obviously Chad has had some bad finishes. He's had some podiums. He's usually consistent enough
So if you take
that
Brandon out of the equation,
Mhm.
who's your next? Okay, if Chad steps aside and you can't be and it can't be Brandon, who's your next guy?
Max Lindquist.
That's what I was thinking too. Him or Wesley.
Mhm. I like Mason. I like Wesley. Mason, I just don't think he's mature. Not mature. I don't think he's been in this class and as a mature pro rider enough yet. Wesley, well, I mean, obviously it'd be getting time off of work and stuff like that with Wesley, but he's fifth in points right now, but he's got one podium finish. He's kind of all across the board with his finishes.
So
So you got somebody that's not as consistent enough. Max isn't as consistent as he has been in the past. But I mean, he's got a fourth, he's got two fifths, he's got three fifths, a sixth, a fourth, 1/10, and 1/11. That really kicks him in the seat of the pants there for this year. But I know that was somebody that was in the mix for talking about last year, and then they ended up taking Brandon instead of Max.
so if you break down your points here,
Hmm.
um, I'm looking at it, and if
Yeah, I
it's
am too.
wrong, it's Joel, Bryce, Chad,
Hmm.
and it's Mason,
Yep.
then it's
And
Brandon
Wesley.
Poe.
Brandon's back in eighth right now.
They're showing it on mine is fifth.
Y- You've got it in there with Budds Creek
I went to points, the points championship deals. So unless it's not updated,
because I'm on resultsmx.com, which is basically the e-score site that you get directed to off the
so where do
series
they have
website.
Decker? Where do they have Decker on your deal?
Decker's 10th.
Okay, here mine is six. Where's Lindquist?
Lindquist is 6th.
Okay, so you have Mason, Wesley, then
Max.
Max. Well, they're
Hmm.
going to take if Chad steps down, they're going to take Mason. Unless Chad goes, do I get to pick my replacement? And if he picks his replacement, he's going to pick Max.
Hmm. Hmm. I have a
That's
feeling it's going
because
to be Chad because Chad has been a part of this for so many years. He knows all the things about it. It'd be easy to send him because they know that he's got the bikes that he could get one to Baldwin to get prepped and sent because that's the other thing too. They need to get these bikes sent over soon. I believe it's actually Pleasure Valley. Those bikes need to be sent home with Mark Baldwin.
I agree. So, yeah, because the race is in September. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they better pick their team soon. And did who's going to run it? Because the ref stepped aside, or is it next
Harv
year?
is still part of Team USA.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I don't think
Yep.
you can do it without that guy. He's
No,
for
Harv, and that's just it. I mean, the whole Team USA thing is honestly Harv and Chad's baby.
yeah. Unless if Chad wasn't a rider, maybe Chad would step up and be the guy.
I was kind of hoping that. I was hoping that if Chad wasn't coming back this year, due to last year's injuries and stuff, I was hoping that he would step up as, you know, team something.
Right. I think with all his resources, he should start a team. We're dragging on our race report. We need to have an episode and talk about all these things. But um, You know what? We're having an amazing season. We're throwing out speculations there. Uh, let's
Well,
just,
imagine this, Leonard. If you did not have Joel and Bryce this, in this mix this year, it'd be a very interesting season.
yeah, because Chad would be your points leader.
Chad would be your points leader, but you looking at it, you would have how racing in most series is. You've got people
Have six
all
different
over the
winners.
place.
Yeah, you'd
Yeah,
have six different winners.
right. So,
And
yes,
I
obviously
don't want to lose
Joel works his
Bryce or
ass off.
Joe.
Bryce works his ass off. They both deserve where they are. But
Yeah.
just saying, if those two were not in the mix, it'd be a very interesting season.
Oh, I see where I was making a mistake. I was looking at Triple Crown.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah, dude. Ugh, man, we'll see how it breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
Chad's not comfortable where he's at, but if they're picking, which normally they're picking by round 8,
Mm-hmm.
round 7, they're normally have already picked.
Right,
I don't
right.
know what the holdup is.
Yeah, yeah. I'm guessing there's some stuff on the back end with it.
Maybe they had already privately picked, and then with the thing with Brandon,
Could be.
they had Brandon at third in points, and
Right,
now they don't. So we'll have to
right.
see. We'll have to see what's going on.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
we'll Friday we'll check in and see how we're doing.
Yeah,
And
we'll see what happens. We'll see who's there and who I get a chance to talk to and
excellent.
go